Huh? I'm live? Uh-oh. No more funnies.
Yeah, we're working on it. Just go ahead.
Okay, everybody, this is Gloria Hawker. She's an author, she's an abductee, and she's a hypnotherapist. And she has some wonderful, wonderful ideas to tell everyone about. So, Gloria, it's all yours.
Well, thank you, Judy. Thank you. There we go. Yes. Thank you, and thank you once again for having me here at the UFO Watchtower and at Judy's Ranch for the third year. And I recognize many faces in today's crowd. Hello, and I'm glad you're here. I'm going to change my talk because I'm sure for the last 2 years you've heard about what I had to say about my own experiences. Okay, my name is Gloria Hawker, and I am an alien abductee, as well as a MILAB. MILAB meaning military government abductee. I'm a native of Albuquerque, New Mexico. I'm married. I have 4 adult children and 2 grandchildren. Alien abduction is a phenomenon that is not really widely spoken about or understood by your normal human beings. Many human beings who are living with this secret and extraordinary life, it doesn't fit our usual understanding of reality. We find it difficult to explain, to talk about what is happening to us when we have our awakening. Awakening meaning first conscious memories of an abduction. We can't even talk with our close friends and a lot of our families. We lead what I used to call a secret life. Because of ridicule and feeling insane. The abduction phenomenon appears to cut across all walks of life. Your educational, geographic, intellectual, economic, racial, ethnic, and your political lines. There are many, many millions, as Mark Kimmel just told us, of abductees, not just in the United States, throughout our whole world. Okay, for the last 2 years, most of you have heard what I've had to tell about my abduction experiences and government abductions. And for those who have not heard about my experiences, I am also an author. And the title of my book is Morning Glory, Diary of an Alien Abductee. And it has my true story, my true abduction experiences, not just mine, because I have 2 children, a girl and a boy, who are also abductees. My husband has discovered as well. They have taken him. He and I have had shared memories as long as 2 of my children. So one day, I would love to share my story with you who have not heard me talk. I would like to direct my talk today because I am a hypnotherapist, working, guiding other alien abductees. why, you're probably asking, is because I feel you need to know that yes, there are other alien abductees who are going through the horrific torment of being abducted out of their beds at night. Not just at nighttime anymore. We can be driving down the street during daylight time, which had happened to me. And before you know it, your car, here I'm driving on a freeway, my car began to lift. What's going on here? The traffic is heavy. Somebody's got to see. My car keeps going up, up, up. And I'm looking down while I'm in my car. And before I know it, I'm in a craft. So I've been abducted during the day, at home, or wherever I may be. Same for a lot of my clients. I'd like to take this time to share with you some cases and their experiences that I have heard in hypnotherapy, guiding people who have contacted me. People who have called me on the telephone through my business. They don't know me. They don't know what I look like. They can't see my facial expressions. And to listen over the telephone, their heartbreaking stories that they start to tell me. To hear their tears over the phone, through their strained voices, I can pick up their body shaking as they're talking to me, which brought back every time the memory of my first contacting someone to help me. Because the next step for me was to be admitted to a mental health hospital. And the person that came into town to give a talk, Mr. Michael Lindemann, I went to hear him talk, but the reason I went is to talk with him, to plead with him. Please help me, because if you can't, I have to go to a mental health hospital because I am insane. He passed by my seat several different times, and my husband's sitting there by my side, and I said, please call him over, please call him over. And my husband kept telling me, no, this is something you have to do. And I'm shaking in my boots, and I can't do it, I can't do it. And finally, just right before he went up on stage, I stood up and I said, Mr. Linderman. And I didn't think he would know who called out his name. And he turned around and looked at me directly. And he walked over to me, and I said, I'm going to be talking, I have a problem. And what you're going to be talking about today. I said, I need some direction, I need some help. And right then and there, he wanted to hear some of my story, so I told him. He asked me, he said, okay, if this ends, my talk ends before 11 o'clock, then I want you in the back, and we're going to talk. But if I don't get away before 11 o'clock, he goes into his pocket, hands out a card. You be on the phone Monday morning. I'll be back in California Monday morning. You contact me then. Okay, I understand now what my clients, they are so courageous. They are so strong because I'm not talking to them face to face, talking to them over the phone. It's hard. It's very hard. I can pick up, even over the phone now, what I call wannabes. These are people who pretend that they are alien abductees. Perhaps maybe for the thrill of it, I don't know. Or perhaps maybe they have a mental condition or want attention from it. I feel very sorry for them. I did invite one wannabe over, and I thought he was a true abductee, but no, picked it up right away. I am, because of being a hypnotherapist, I do work with the Academy of Clinical Close Encounter Therapists, and also I work with Extraordinary Experience Research Group, John Mack's group, which I have had to contact several times because if I cannot resolve the problem with my clients, I have to have someone else to go to help me, to help them. I have already said, you know, there's millions of abductees who are leading this secret life, just as I did. I hope you can understand what I have to say. I don't know if you'll necessarily have the belief of what I have to say today about some of my clients. I have had clients come to me from all over the United States, New York, Pennsylvania, all the way over to Vancouver, Oregon, down the coast of California, Arizona. There's no radius. And many of them are also military government abductees. I don't know if you all understand what hypnotherapy is, hypnosis, but it is nothing more than relaxation, total relaxation. What I try to do is put the protector, the conscious mind, who is a great protector, asleep. Give it some rest. Let's get into the unconscious mind where every single memory, every moment of your life is in the unconscious mind. It's like a file drawer. And within this file drawer, you have all these files of every single moment of your life. So we have to do something with that conscious mind, the great protector, who will not let anything be revealed that is so frightening, so terrifying, so horrific to a person. It covers it, it protects it. So during hypnotherapy, in the induction, there are ways to where I can put this conscious mind to rest and open up the unconscious mind and guide my clients to what they have directed me to find out for them, what they need to know. This is all spoken of before. When they come to my home office, yes, we go through another interview. They have several forms that they fill out for me. And then we talk about what they want to discover. And that's where the lead-in is at. So during my talk, I will try to interject some of my own experiences. So hopefully that'll work out. Let's start with a case number 1, a young man who I met in person at this conference. And when I brought him in, what we discovered, starting at the very beginning, I took him back to 1959, when he was just 8 years old. He had been sleeping with his other sibling on a bunk bed and heard a noise, a voice in his ear to wake up. So he did. He is on his side, facing the wall. He finds out, how come I can't turn over? And he's really fighting as an 80-year-old boy. What's the matter? But he's over here trying to move his head. So he turns his head, and what these entities, aliens, the alien species do is paralyze your body. Sometimes they'll allow you to move your eyes back and forth or turn your head back and forth. Well, this time the little boy was able to turn his head back and forth. It was very fearful for him because being 80 years old and he's not able to turn his body, so he turns his head, and on the opposite wall of his bedroom, because of this very strong white light shining into his bedroom, he sees a shadow of a UFO. All new to him. What is that? Then this voice in his head once again tells him, you're going to go to sleep. Close your eyes. We want you to dream. So that happens. He wakes up. He doesn't know how many minutes have passed by. He's standing in front of his bedroom window, looking out. He sees this object, round object, come towards him. Because of the light that is being projected from the bottom of this object, he sees this very tall, thin creature with thin arms and legs and a thin body. He watches this creature as the creature walks to the center of this light and sees the creature be drawn up into the light, into the ship. As fast as that occurred, the ship immediately took off, just as quick. Before he knew it, how it ever happened, I don't know, he was put right back to sleep. He woke up the next morning in his bed. Pesty fly. This man we discovered, he has gone through many abductions since childhood, age 8. As he grew older, to find himself looking in the bathroom mirror, which now, this is confirmation, especially for me, to carry on because I get the same complaint out of many other abductees. They'll be looking in the bathroom mirror or any mirror privately, and all of a sudden, like this client, he's looking into the bathroom mirror, and all of a sudden he sees these large, black, slatted eyes behind him looking in the mirror too. And he'll turn around and nobody's there, but the image of these large, slatted eyes are there. He starts feeling his face. Is that me? What's going on here? Now he's an adult already when this happens. The eyes would always be behind him, and his head would always feel very large. And all of a sudden, he'd get this tremendous pressure in his head. This would happen many times to him. Okay, the outlook of this is, from that experience, he would go and ask his mother, am I adopted? I don't belong in this family. He always felt that he did not belong in his original family. He felt he belongs with them. Them meaning the Greys. He feels he is part of them, that he comes from where they come from, the planet Orion, and he wants to be with them. He does not feel that he belongs here. The gray right here, well, let's see, my little thing's not working, is the top photo up here. The one with the larger head is the smaller gray, who stands about 3 to 4 feet tall, thin arms, thin body. You've got your taller gray up here, which the picture would not come out very large for me. They have a thinner, slimmer type head. I mean, it's still large with the big eyes, but they're taller. Some can be 5, 6 feet tall. They are the boss over the smaller grays, and I've had encounters, abductions, with these 2 grays as well. To have 5 of them walk into my bedroom one night, and being a non-believer, being so naive that our planet was just very, very small. Yes, I knew about our 9 planets, other planets, but that was it. Above that is heaven where God resides. But many clients are very open-minded and can believe. So anyway, this client, he had, that same night, he did see the smaller gray and the taller gray. And he was taken up. Over the years, he's had all kinds of medical experiments done with him, which includes, they take as an adult, and when he came to puberty age, taking semen. Taking semen from a male is very, very detrimental to a male, just as it is to a female with all the gynecological examinations, and I'll go into that further, what happens to a female, okay? His encounters continued until he was a teenager, and then it seemed to stop. Then in 1991, the encounters, like he said, went off the charts. Sometimes he'd be abducted 2, 3 times a week, which I've experienced myself, so I know what he's talking about, with all the physical testing and examinations that he would undergo. With males, sometimes they will assign either a hybrid meaning half human and half part of the grays. I have hybrid children. Okay, getting back to his story. They would either have a female gray or a hybrid who is chosen for him. He'll grow up with this person just to have sexual intercourse with him. They grew very close together. You grow very close together to him. He showed me scars where skin removal had been done on his body, on his calves, feet, back, and his arms and head. Confirmation. You wake up one morning, you look at your arms, you look at your front of your body or near your private parts, your legs. What happened there? I didn't hurt myself last night. There was nothing wrong last night. But yet, here, I've got skin removal. Many abductees, well, wake up in the morning, you find needle marks on your arms, weird bruising, weird cuts. Where did those come from? I've examined many clients, so I know. I believe them. The hurting part for this particular client is when he married. His wife was very close-minded. Thought he was insane. Couldn't take any more. Divorced him. It was very hurting for him. He met someone new in his life. Thought she believed. He thought she believed in him. No, she was a skeptic. She was just about as closed-minded as wife number one. Really hurt him a lot because she was always calling him, "You're nothing but insane. We need to do something for you. You're not right." And yet all these abductions kept occurring. They did have a young son. One evening, the Greys came to take Daddy, and the son witnessed this, seeing the Greys take Daddy out through the window. Confirmation. Through hypnosis, this young man, he did describe the circular rooms of a spaceship, the various different Greys, because there are various different Greys because of their colors. You have your brown Greys, white Greys, your gray Greys, Greys who have even skin color like mine. That was my first. When I went to see Mr. Bud Hopkins, and he put me under hypnotherapy, I kept describing my skin color. And I thought, uh-oh, that really threw me off. He's going to really think I'm really insane. He's going to tell me, "Gloria, I can't help you." But no, there are Greys with this type of color as well. Over the years, my client has gotten to know not only the Greys, but I don't know if you can see my drawing. I'm not an artist. What you call the praying mantis. They're very tall beings, a species, but they are very loving. They are very understanding. They're there for you. He described being with them. And over the years of all his abductions, he has grown close to them. They're his friends, and he wants to be with them. Even as harmful as maybe some of the Greys have been to him, he still wants to be with them today. He does remember being with other humans in a circular room. He had described tall objects to me through hypnotherapy that circled the inside of this one particular room, which looked, as he described them, they looked like umbrellas. And the base of the stem of this umbrella had some kind of solution in it. He doesn't know what the solution was used for, but it had something in it. I've heard something else with other clients about not having the umbrella, but just with a glass stem with different colored liquid within. But he described these having, the shell of an umbrella for whatever reason. Okay, let's go to a lady who I'll call Lady A. This 53-year-old woman, married, has 2 daughters. She is a psychotherapist. Her awakening begins in Boulder, Colorado, also in 1989, same year as mine, my awakening. No, my awakening was in 1988, sorry. She sought me out because she needed guidance for discovery on her first abduction experience. If you don't have anyone to talk to, like I had said earlier, and release this, what's happening to you, it eats away at you inside. You're not yourself. Like I used to spend, after an abduction, many days in my bedroom chair, trying just to put the pieces together. Who are they? Where did these ungodly creatures come from? And it eats away at you. Yes, you can end up being insane with that if you don't find help. Anyway, with this lady, she sought me out either because of Morning Glory or she heard of me by referral. So she calls me up with her story. I bring her into my home office. Her experience begins one night around 7 p.m. in the springtime. You probably know what a coal frame garden box is, where she and her husband grew vegetables. She had walked out one evening to go get some lettuce from this coal frame box. She lifts up the lid, and they had this real large latch, sharp latch to it. For some reason, the coal frame box, the top of it, came down, dug deep into the side of her head. She thought that she had run into the house, got her husband, called her husband, who was still at work, and said, "I'm really bleeding. I got a deep cut. Will you please come home?" So 15, 20 minutes go by, and he came home, drove her to the hospital, emergency ward. That's where everything became black as they drove up in front of the door. She woke up in an unfamiliar place. Bright light right over her. She felt herself laying down. She thought she had just passed out. They were working on her, stitching her up, she thought. And she realized she couldn't move her body. She only could move her eyes. So she was just trying to turn her eyes in any direction. How come I can't move my body? My body is feeling so weird. What happened here? And right at that point, a hand passes just right here on her side. And she looked at it. 3 fingers long. Never seen anything like that. Shock of it. Then at that time, here comes what I call the ungodly creature, the being that she had never seen before. Can you imagine the shock? She was a hard client to work with because of the fear. Starting out, as soon as I got her to the time and place that she wanted to relive, crying there in my chair. It was hard for her. But I touch her on the arm to let her know she's in a safe place. Continue on. She passed out because of the fear. Wakes up. She is, once again, laying right there by the coal frame box. And then, just as she saw that, she's thrown back to this unfamiliar place. And here's 2 or 3 or more of those beings on the side of her, starting to do other work. What they did to her, this light came out of the ceiling like a pencil, small. And she described what she saw one being lift up, the being meaning small and tall grays. One of them picked up a small size, eraser size camera. This thing that came out of the ceiling was a laser light, or a laser medical instrument for cutting. What they did, she did have initial cut from the coal frame box. They even cut her wider, deeper, and go into the eye, insert. She's awake. She's awake through all this. They didn't keep her asleep. So she felt, she saw. They inserted this small camera size right in here. Then she describes like a catgut string that they used to stitch her up. Just for, I guess, to say that the next morning when she wakes up that, yes, she did get hurt by the cold frame box. Here, I've got the stitches to, to prove it. So anyway, when they were done with her, all they have to do is touch you here on the side, either side, and right here. And good night, you're asleep. No memory. Let's take away the memory. Mind control. Go to sleep. You'll wake up in your bed, safe and sound. Except they delivered her right back to the cold frame box. She's laying there. She woke up and looking at railroad ties that were right there by the cold frame box, and that just brought on another memory that this time the same incident, they had put her into a very dark room. And thus she starts describing bars, like what she described, metal bars at one end of this room, which was very dark when she was put there, but then a small blue light came on into the room, and there was a door, and she was able to look outside this door, and there was nobody there. But then she had to take a double check and look again through the window. She saw what she calls people. And what she described these people wearing, she said they had white suits on, whitish type suits on with helmets. And she said these suits reminded me of the astronauts when they went to the moon. They were the same type suits. Human or not, I don't know. But we went with that flow. Then behind these people, she saw something that reminded her of the railroad ties in her own yard. And she couldn't really see that well to distinguish what these railroad type objects were. So she's laying outside, and all these memories are starting to focus immediately on her. She was in a stupor because she thought she had run into her house. She thought her husband was home, and her husband took her to the emergency ward. That didn't happen. Through hypnotherapy, we found out that did not happen. Who came to get her was these beings, these species, and they lifted her up into the ship. She had already been an experiencer, an abductee. Through several other sessions, we soon discovered sometimes the conscious mind will play all kinds of tricks on you. She knew that the man she married, she grew up with, because he was the next door neighbor. Suddenly, this next door neighbor, little boy at age 5, they would get so excited at nighttime because they were waiting for this light to come and take them to see God. And they wanted to go see God. So several times a week, this object, which she could not understand as a child, would come into her bedroom and his bedroom, put them out in the center of their houses, between the houses, and take them up to go see God. Anyway, they would go up, and what she described, if you're up with Star Trek, R2-D2, the little round robot, they have a robot there, because with another client described the very same thing as a child. This robot would be there after they entered the craft. There would be a small gray waiting there, like on the hole, the open hole that you go through. He would be there waiting for you, and then children are normally taken to a play area with other human beings. And this R2-D2 robot is there too, to ease the fear Children, I am finding, are not as fearful and frightful of these beings as adults are. Children are more open to accept what is happening to them, the consequences. So where they found God here, I don't know. But these two were brought together, the client A and her matched mate were brought together for life. It's been very hard on them. And describing through hypnotherapy all the procedures, medical procedures that he had undergone, and all the medical procedures and torment that she had undergone. They finally, well, they did marry, and it came to a terrific ending for her because he could not take it anymore. It was just too much for him. He wanted all these entities out of his life, and he felt that she was the cause why these entities were in their life since age 5 and 4 years old. He left her. She loved him so much. She tried everything she could to save the marriage, but he would not have any part of it. I could understand the hurt in her and her tears. She had many tears rolling down her face. It's one thing with my clients, I don't let my clients go until I know that they can handle it. I'm there for them. If they need that hug, I'm there for them. I understand. I believe. I believe in their stories. It's hard. It's hard. It's hell at times. Her daughters, on one abduction experience, she was taken to this small auditorium where she found many species sitting there. They sat her in the front row. She didn't know what was happening. It was the very first abduction that she saw both of her daughters. Her daughters were walked on to this stage like a little parade, stopped in the middle of the stage. They had to turn around different ways so that these various species, whatever they were looking for, could view their bodies. Yes, many times you're nude. They remove your night garments or street garments. So here's her daughters. She's seeing her daughters up there on this stage. It's tough. Like I said, when I first noticed my daughter, who was 12 years old at the time, I woke up finding her laying on the next table, seeing the tears come down her face, seeing over the many abductions later what they had done to my daughter. You grow to hate these species, and with me, I always used to think I was hallucinating. I am insane. And boy, being a hypnotherapist now, I'm seeing many of my clients do that. Gloria, I'm just insane. Please help me, Gloria. With tears coming down their face. They call me sometimes in the middle of the night. I need you, Gloria. I need help. You're the only one that can help me. You're the only one that can understand. So if I can be there for them. It's tough, even being as a hypnotherapist, being an abductee. It's still tough for me. I try to have to remain strong, not cry while they're there. But once we say our goodbyes, I have to release what I heard them go through. While you're under hypnotherapy, you relive every single moment of what happened to you. Your body A lot of them. They start moving their hands, wiggling in my chair. I've got this large recliner chair that lays down. There's many things that I can look for, but they're reliving and moving their heads back and forth. Just everything that happened to their body that night, the way they try to express themselves, it happens in my chair. I see it. So once they can leave my home office and I close that door, I'll go back and sit in my office. And I have to cry. I have to cry for them. And I pray to our God, my God, please help me to be able to help them. Even though I did give them the suggestions that they're going to have a wonderful day today. They're going to have a wonderful week. Certain things are going to make them happy. I pray so that it does. But the hurt is still there. And then I reflect of what happened to me. But then, I'm a therapist. Got to let it go. Going through that process, I let it go. I give it to the universe. Just let it go. And which has been very helpful. Because I got to be there for them. And I can't put my own problems, my own abductions on them. I can't tell them about what I went through. Not until after they are healed. Then, because they, right away, what happened to you? What happened to you, Gloria? No. You came to see me, I'm going to help you. You are the important one here. So let's work on you first. So, which happens? Let's go on. Yeah, this same lady too, during one of her abductions, a lady came out, stood by the end of the table that you're put on, and she described this lady as looking as Cleopatra. She was a human lady. She had long black hair, and this lady would constantly repeat to her that she is loved, she is surrounded by love, don't be afraid. And that was whoever this lady was. If she would have given me a height of this lady, then I could say this lady is a Nordic. A Nordic is right here, who are about, both male and female, are about 7 feet tall, very attractive, blonde hair, blue eyes. They are very comforting, very concerned species. Yes, they look like humans. Case number 3. Many abductees, to rid themselves, thinking it is safe to do this, to be able to do this, what they do to themselves, their body, to rid the fear, the fright, to get rid of abductions, not understanding what they are, who these little creatures are, or tall creatures are, or ungodly looking creatures are. They turn to alcohol or hard drugs. I had this one lady, young lady at the time, and I listened to her story over the phone. I invited her in to my home office. And on one of my forms, you know, do you drink alcohol? Are you an alcoholic? What about drugs? You know, I have all that listed because I need to know. There's a lot of personal information on my forms that I do need to know before I put someone through the relaxation of hypnotherapy. Well, she signs everything just perfect. During her first session, she wanted to find out what happened to her 2 weeks prior. So I said, okay, as long as I got the date, the time, we'll go there. You're the boss. You take us there. So she did. She didn't get very far into the abduction experience or into the hypnotherapy before she was thrown to the age of 6 years old, reliving an experience, her very first awakening in the Jemez Mountains. Her parents and all family members, extended family members, would go to the Jemez Mountains in New Mexico. I don't know if any of you know where that is. Camping every weekend. One time was on a Saturday. She, for some reason, looking out through amongst the trees, instead of playing with her cousins, she sees this little play toy out there. So she starts walking towards him, thinking he was just a play toy. What is it, you know? Through telepathic, all species speak to human beings telepathically. They don't move their mouths. You hear them up here, their voices. This little gray being is speaking. Come here, beckoning her to go over there. So she did. Little 6-year-old girl. He walks her deeper into the forest and tells her to come to a certain area. Well, he's got her hand, and before she knows that, she's taken up to the craft. Everything goes blank. No one seemed to, none of her family seemed to miss her. She was gone for some time. She also went up to play with R2-D2, be introduced to other people, little small children. This happened weekly for some time. We never got to the experience of what had happened 2 weeks prior to her, because she wanted to relive. She's the boss. I just guided her to where she needed to be. She's the boss. She's the leader. Whatever she saw, whatever she was living, came out on my chair. Session ended. She wanted another session, so I saw her the next week. And she still wanted to know what happened 3 weeks ago, so start going through it again. Got her into the relaxed state. The induction just went just like that, just as planned. She was very easy. She would be lying there in bed, see this little gray being at her side, and red flag comes up. This little red bean would allow her to walk through the living room, out the door, go meet him in this light that was out by the street, and then the twirling sensation would begin. And as she is being twirled around in this light, it threw her right back to 6-year-old. That's a red flag for me. Something's going on here. So I let her relive all that, brought her out of hypnotherapy, and we sat and talked. And I let her talk. She was under heavy drugs yet, and alcohol. So I said, I'm sorry, I can't help you anymore. She wouldn't let me go. She'd cry and cry, I'll get sober, I'll get sober. No, I need you sober. I need you off at least for 6 months. I will, I will, I will. No. Next week, get a phone call from her. Can you come and get me out of jail? No. My parents kicked me out. I don't have any place to go. Can you help me, Gloria? And she'd always call me, and the very first words out of her mouth would be about an abduction. Please help, Gloria. And then, please, can you come and get me out of jail? 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning. I don't do that, I'm sorry. Gloria, can you lend me some money? I don't have any money. Can't do that. 2 or 3 phone calls per week. It got old soon. You straighten yourself up first. Gloria, will you please help me? I need the help. You're on drugs, you're on alcohol. She is leading a horrible life, Yes, some of the abductions that she does talk about I do believe. Because there's different points that I do pick up, that you're trained to pick up. And she did express some of those points. But they're very clouded because of the alcohol or the heavy drugs. Up until this day, she'll still call me. And I finally, I had to become very angered with her over the phone. I told you not to call me anymore. I cannot help you. Not until you clean yourself up. Because you're not going to really be able to help yourself. Knowing other abductees who numb themselves with the drugs and the alcohol, they come to a turning point and they can get off the alcohol and they can get off the drugs. It happens. So I've seen it. So to use tough love on this young lady. I've seen this lady go through abortions. She thinks they're hybrid babies, but they're not. She's causing herself more turmoil than what needs to happen to her. And I told her, she cleans herself up, I can work with her. I can give her that hug that she needs. She's appeared at my door many times. I won't open the door anymore for her. She has to learn. I have to be tough until she can get herself cleaned up. It's hard. She had come out to her grandmother a couple of years ago because her grandmother was open-minded. So she was able to talk with her grandmother, tell her grandmother what was going on. Her grandmother accepted it. She thought she had told her grandmother in confidentiality. Her grandmother went to her mother and father, told everything. Her mother and father were ready to take her to see a psychiatrist. They kicked her out of the house again, which was hard on her. This next case, a young man who contacted me through a friend. He lives on the west side of the state. He's a 38-year-old man who began his journey into this phenomena when he had his awakening at age 26. He is a Native American. One year before I guided him, he had a nervous breakdown because of the abductions and because he felt all alone. There's no one you can talk to about it. It's eating away at him, and it did eat away at him. He had a nervous breakdown, and that's why he came to New Mexico. When he came to my home office, he did present as a very sane, in control of his life. He helped himself. The medicine man did. Except he couldn't understand why he had so much anger. And this anger would just suddenly come on. And he wanted help with anger. So when I brought him in, yes, I already knew we had discussed about alien abductions and his abductions. As a child, I got him back, took him back to age 3, where he would be playing out in his yard. He used to have this large black train, plastic train that he used to sit on and ride. And from the Midwest, he'd have, the folks would have large wood piles of wood. He'd always seem to ride over that way and play in that area. And then, all of a sudden, here's this little gray toy there beckoning him. Would take him right then and there. for however long. Mom never missed him. He would always be delivered right back and put back on that little black plastic train. Very few of us abductees will come back with a lot of memory. We're allowed a lot of memory. They don't take away the memory. They don't use all the mind control on us. He had a lot of memory since age 3. He relived that whole time because they used to take him. And for some reason, he was always wanting to be on that little black train outside playing. Why Mom never went to investigate on her child after a while? Is my child safe playing in the yard? Or I don't hear him playing? What's going on? I don't know. Evidently they must have controlled Mom while she's inside doing housework. But Mom never went out. So that was his first experience, his awakening, age 3. My client has spent many sleepless and restless nights full of anxiety and fear. This also follows suits with your regular abductee. You get like a knowing of when they're coming. Maybe this knowing will start early in the afternoon. You know something's going to happen, but you don't know what at the time. Is it going to be an accident involving one of my siblings or my husband or something? And then when you go to bed at night, that's a symptom of knowing when you're going to be abducted. You go through symptoms before and you go through symptoms afterwards. Knowing he finally fell asleep during this one time, he had a lovebird. He woke up, heard his lovebird really chirping away, fluttering in the cage. It's another pattern when the abductees come. If you have a pet, sometimes the pets know before you even know, and the pets will respond. Well, his lovebird was really going ballistic in the cage, and before he knew it, here's a gray. Took him up. A lot of medical experiences as well that males undergo. Finding skin removal, the needle marks, the bruising. One abduction experience, though, that is very traumatic, as I had him in my chair. He was connected to the reptilians. If you can see my pictures up here. He is also what you call the MILAB abductee, military government, just such as I am. He was one night out in his shop working, had a generator going, loud generator. Something made him turn off the generator, some type of noise. So he turns around, goes out of the shop. By his house, he sees this woman figure, and he thought he recognized the lady, but he couldn't see the face. And then all of a sudden, his generator started going on again. So he runs in there because he knew he turned off that generator. So he goes back in to his shop. The generator is spewing out all over like a thick black substance. And then something white that he described as cottage cheese. So he turns it off, and it was very hot. I mean, the way he described it, the generator was somehow being affected. And here was this whole mess. Anyway, he felt the presence, and he turns around because also he wanted to know who was that lady that came up, who was standing by his house. So he turns around, going to walk out there. Here he sees another lady standing right behind him. Blacks out, wakes up, on board. Well, no, I'm sorry, he was not on board ship. He woke up. He's lying on this table. Here comes a human lady, regular human lady in a white lab coat, comes over to the table. He knows this lady, and it was the same lady that was right behind him. She opens up his mouth, starts looking into his mouth. Evidently he's got implants down here at the gums. And so she's doing some work to the implants, and then here comes another man, also in a white lab coat. The lady seems to make, the human ladies who are military, any military people who wear the white lab coats, they always try to keep themselves covered so you can't see the uniforms. She made a sudden move and her coat flew open and saw a uniform. Okay. So anyway, the man comes and he's over here, you know, working on his head, feeling, I guess, for the implants that he's got in his head, and looking the ears and the nose and what have you. When you have implants, especially in the nose, you'll have constant bloody noses. And it's like sometimes the blood just comes out very heavily, profusely. And you can't stop the nosebleed. It seems to stop on its own. So he experienced a lot of that as well as I have. The ear implants is for communication with these beings. You hear their voices. They can track you. They know where you're at if they want to find you during the day through the implants here in the ears or up here on your head. You're always monitored through these implants. So, okay, he's laying on the table. They ask him to sit up. So he sits up. Another lady comes over with this large square card that has an ink blot on it. Having worked in the mental health field, I know what he's talking about already. This blot has a little, you look at this weird ink blot on the card, and whatever you see on the ink blot you describe. This card was completely different. It had a lot of psychological things to it. And what it did to him, it kicked him into unconsciousness as this moved around on the card. He woke up lying on the outside. He was able to see this gray brick building. It was not his forest. He said the trees were different. It wasn't the terrain. It wasn't his terrain. He felt something around his neck. He didn't know what was around his neck. He saw a couple of the military people standing around him. He wants to know what's around his neck, and he can't reach with his hands, so he turns his head and he sees this large concrete block. Notice like a rope tight thing coming from the block that was choking him around the neck. He looks out towards the darkness, sees this large figure in a black hood, black cape, with a very large, unusually large dog. Doesn't know what's going on. He didn't know at the time. Through hypnotherapy, I had him look at himself. The only way I can describe or tell you about it, metamorphosis of a butterfly, the process that the butterfly goes through and becomes, through metamorphosis, a beautiful butterfly, you know, from a caterpillar to the little shell that it lives in, and then it breaks out of the shell and it's a beautiful butterfly. Having him look at himself, the transformation that occurred to him, that he saw himself as in my chair. He had an inkling before this experience happened. In an unhuman voice, he's trying to tell me what he is, what he became, what they did to him. how the species, evidently the microphone's not working. Can you all hear me? It's working? Okay. Thank you. He saw fur on himself. He wanted to attack. When he saw that, there was more reptilians in a circle. He was in the center. The reptilians were circling him, as well as the government people. He wanted to attack. He wanted to kill, and he knew he could. As powerful as the reptilians are, as restraining as they are, he had the power that he could attack. He had so much anger. He wanted to kill him. But something came in. Something through his being Native American helped him at this moment. Then he wanted to attack these government people. And in this unhuman voice that he had, I can't tell you what he turned into. To see a grown man in my chair with the tears coming from his eyes as he's bolting in my chair and trying to tell him loudly, you're in a safe place now. You lived through it. You came through this experience. This experience to him did not happen just once. It happened many times. He wanted to go and attack that dog, but he knew the possibility that that dog, this large dog, could also have been a human being. Something held him back. If you're knowledgeable in reading any of these type stories and books, you've probably, and also talking with other abductees, you may have heard that a human has been taken to like a zoo or a laboratory where in cages you have horrific looking other type creatures who could possibly be maybe these entities' pets, experiments. They could have been going through the metamorphosis, transformations. They could be humans. My client was taken back, and they gave him a shot. He woke up, lying down on the bed. Military was around him, opening up his mouth again, I guess to see if he had transformed back into human species. They were doing all kinds of examination on him to make sure that he was okay. How can, even though a universal species, how can they be so powerful? I've had my experiences with them, especially with the military, what they did to me, if you've read my book, which many of you have. But to me, and hearing this through my client, is far more worse. How can our God allow this to happen for a universal species to do this to us, human species? I don't have the answer. All I could do when he bolted out of my chair was hug him tight, let him cry, get it out of his system. And he cried and he cried. And then we sat down and talked. That's one thing I'll do with all my abductees. When I bring them out, I don't let them go. I have spent 2 hours after the session sitting with them talking. It's for real. You're not insane. It's happening. It's very traumatic seeing another human being being treated that way. And you know it's the truth because confirmation comes. Soon after, I had another client who lives in almost the same area, just a few miles down the road. And I brought him in. He was viable. Went through his hypnotherapy sessions with him, except one thing different with this young man. He verified everything that man number A told me about. He's on a different spectrum. If you want to say more of a friendlier spectrum, there's a group called Cobalt Military. I don't know if you've all heard of the Cobalt government. It's a branch off of our government that includes a lot of well-known scientists. And they move from section to section, but stay within the state. Right now, they seem to be staying on the west side of the state. But so no one can find them, they move. Client B, I took him back to age 3, sitting in a high chair, when a small gray approached him. Took him up, very beginning of his education with these entities. Not just the grays, but the reptilians. He has learned to use parts of his brain that we cannot use. There's a lot of power in that. He would be placed in a schoolroom with other children up until he was a teenager. And he would be abducted 2-3 times a week and being taught alien technology. Their schooling is a lot different than what we grew up with as human beings. He described seeing like hologram little triangles, squares, or whatever the teaching was about that day being floated right in front of him. So real, you could touch them. Square this, square that. I'm not geology, I think geometry. The teaching there is very powerful. And he was taken until about teenager, being taught, which was okay. He's on another spectrum, never hurt. Never went through any of the medical examinations, cuts, bruises. They treated him just super duper. And then, on one abduction experience, he was taken. The Grays came and got him, took him out floating through the wall, took him to the small craft where he met some other human beings, men and women. They drove him around the area for about 30 to 40 minutes just for confusion's sake, then landed not too far away where this Cobalt group was, where it was introduced to many well-known scientists and military government, some high-profile government people. Thus, what all he learned since age 3 up until teenager was put to work. I was so astonished when he was telling me that he could melt a military jeep into a small piece of metal laying there on the ground, which had been confirmed to me through another source. We went through a lot of that. The area is heavily guarded. Yes, they're in camouflaged uniforms, the browns and the greens, working side by side by some very well-known scientists. And every time, each week or every 2 weeks, the area would be completely different. Yes, he was there that night when client A was transformed through the metamorphosis state. He saw what happened, he knows what they can do, especially the reptilians. They have the power to do this, and it was the reptilians. Through another investigation of his, one night he was taken to another area, and another ship, cigar-type shaped ship, came in, holding about 10 3-year-olds up to teenagers to about the age of 18, who also went under the process of alien technology learning. They were there that night because something special was supposed to happen. And this is the night that he melted the Jeep to a pile of wet metal on the ground. If our government and world governments possess this type of technology, which I know they do, because I was introduced myself to a technology that our government was experimenting on at the time, and I was their scapegoat or their experiencer to try out this new piece of warfare for them. So I know what they're capable of, because also having other researchers that I can go to, if I can't help the client, I can go to them and we can talk. But I have to have permission when I do this from my clients. And yes, this is where I gain a lot of confirmation as well, knowing that I'm being told the truth, or that the client is being made and aware of his own truth, because he's the one that's got to live with it, not me. Whatever I hear out of their voices, their minds. Okay. Anyway, go through another client who is a lady, and she has been trained as a nurse up in the ship. She has the known technology of alien technology to work on animals and humans when things go wrong. She confirmed both client A and B's experiences. She also comes out of that same area. Another section I'd like to go through is what you call the love bite affair. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of the love bite affair. The reptilians will take, normally, as children, a little girl and a little boy, let them grow up together in, normally, a spaceship. You start with the play group. And as you become to puberty age, they start wanting you to love one another. And then it ends up in sexual intercourse. And you're always with this one particular person forever, even here on Earth. When you're together up there, everything is kosher. Down here on Earth, perhaps one of the couples doesn't want to have anything to do with that female or that male. Sometimes, because this is worldwide, you can be matched up with a Japanese, someone from Sweden, Russia, Germany, but you always seem to find each other, and many of them have. When you find each other, you either want, in real life, you go off and you marry someone else, or you go on with your life, knowing if you're in a marriage, something is not right. The marriage will sometimes break up, divorce. Other times, you stay in the marriage for survival, but something keeps eating away at you. Sometimes when you're together up in the spaceship with the matched mate, sometimes you can communicate with each other. Where do you come from? You cannot talk a lot because the reptilians have control. They don't want you to know where this person came from, what his name is, or anything about this person that they have matched up since very early age. And now you're being very intimate with this person, and you love this person. So many love bite, men or women, reach out and start their search. They find each other. Many have grown as one. They've divorced their spouses and became as one. They married each other, having their own families. And again, no. Don't want any of that. You go away. So, again, they're going through a lot of heart turmoil, crying. I've had 4 clients when I started hearing this. I had studied a little bit on it, but not much. Little did I know that I would be experiencing the same thing, and why, I don't know. I have just a few reasons why. But to have 4 other women and men who have gone through this left bite affair, the cause because of these reptilians, how they control and turn your life upside down, complication, tear away your own respect, and nothing more than elaborate. And I guess the reptilians are just working on emotions. I guess when you're going through the experiment of being coupled with the male or female, they can read into what your body is going through, the reaction of sexual intercourse, your feelings. It's horrible. And what it does to you as a human being living here on our earth. It's tough, again. And not knowing much about it, and maybe it's because I felt for them, for my clients. And some of the clients, I felt maybe they were just wanting the attention. But not until I started experiencing it last year myself. With a young man who comes from New York. I was asked to be in a movie, and I met him. Prior to that, I had undergone 3 regressions for past life, and I kept telling my teacher, that's not me, that's not me, lying in that boat. Or I would recognize the family situation that I was put into in Scotland, or the great love that this young woman and man had in Paris, France. The man being a composer, loved pianos. Found out when he walked down the elevator to come and interview me, standing in a crowd of other people, I knew that man as he came down the elevator at the airport. I knew him right away, and as I'm standing there, flashbacks. Oh, this can't be, because they don't use past lives. The reptilians don't use past lives. The entities don't use past lives. Oh, yes, they do. Because I had people who are very knowledgeable, investigators, who do work with this left bite affair. I knew him right away, and he knew me. And we got along really well. We started talking. Everything just seemed to be going like, if you want to say, old lovers. He began making many trips monthly, and we had a lot of time spent together going around the state of New Mexico so he could investigate where he wanted his film to be. Got to know this young man even more. Thus, many nights I would be abducted by the reptilians. I'd wake up sitting on this table in this small room with 2 of these ungodly-looking, squared-faced reptilians. Thus, they would bring him in. And then they'd take us to what they normally do, is have this room that is set up like a hotel motel room. They take you there. And as my other abductees, love bites, abductees, you're there making passionate love while the reptilians are standing there watching you, reading you. You try to fight against it. I tried to fight against it. Confirmation is, I guess I didn't fight enough because I would come home with the bruises in my private parts. I could remember him whispering in my ear, "I don't want to hurt you, Gloria. It's okay." It's hard. But then it brings you two closer together. At least it brought me closer to him. He's also an abductee. Thus, that brought on a lot of earthly talk while we would sit in the car, driving down a highway, talking about what happened, what occurred. But yet, he wouldn't go through the commitment of he wanted to run away, and I'm left alone. How do I tell my husband? This is not right. He's younger. I'm older. How do I break away from this? Nope, here's the reptilians again, taking me back up. I guess they didn't get what they wanted last time. Here we're taken to the same room. I grew to love the man, as well as my other love-bite abductees did. And I can understand now what they're going through. The hurt, the pain. Even the ones that got married, they have a hell of a life. But they're fighting for what is right. But I have a husband. I was very vulnerable because of where my marriage was. And it wasn't a good marriage. It made me even more vulnerable to this younger man that I grew to love. And now it's hard because I know it's not right. I love my husband. I love my family. This young man, he has his own life. He's not married, but he has his own life. It's a different life than what I would ever want to live. But yet the love remains yet for this man and for my husband. I hate the reptilians. They're Satan. To me, they've always been Satan. And I couldn't understand why I had thought that going through military government was hard. And now to go through something like this is even harder. But I believe I have learned from it to help further be there for my love-bite clients. It's hell and it's rough, but that it's learning. I want to thank you all for listening to me today. Thank you, and for being here.